Hey Dad, what's a control strip?
Good question. Control strip is what we use to test the chemicals. Maybe you can see it better this way. It's the way we test the chemicals to make sure that they're up to par before we run film. The control strip has different color patches that measure the darkness, the lightness, and some very specific colors to make sure that everything looks good. If you can see, this is the batch that we know what we're using. This is a yellow patch, a very dark or a D max patch, high density, the low density, and then the D min, which is basically the film with no exposure, so that we know if there are stains coming through from the chemicals. Each patch has its own job to do. We use a densitometer to measure each patch, and we measure it in red, green, and blue. So for example, in this one, use D max and the yellow-blue patch, yellow-blue reading of the yellow patch, to measure and plot for each day for how many rolls of film we've run where this chemical combination is. If we go down to HD minus LD, we're looking at how does the high density minus low density look? Basically your midtones. Are we doing okay with those? You know, up here we had a spike in film, so we've got a spike going on here. And then we go down here to LD, which is pretty simple. It runs on its own all the time. And D min, we run a clean machine. So the D min is how much stain is going to be in there. So you should have very minimal stain. It should be very minimal across the board. You get different kinds of stain depending on the types of film you're running, how much exposure is in there, things like that. These just let us make sure that the chemicals are exactly where we want them to be. Ideally, we've got minimums that we're trying to stay within. So this one here, we're going to be plus or minus 5. This one's going to be, typically we try and stay plus or minus 5. You can go up to plus or minus 10. This is plus or minus 10. You can go up to 15. So as long as we're in between that, everything looks good. And bear in mind, you can't see these plots in the film. The film, this is a densitometric reading, so it's microscopic. So even if we had a 20 or 30 point change in some of these plots, it's not visible to the eye. When it gets way out there, then you can start seeing a significant difference. But again, we try to make sure that it stays on the chart. It doesn't go off the chart. If we're running cross-process films, or, oh, heaven forbid, we get an ECN2 that goes through, and it can mess up the chemicals and how they're plotting. So if we cross-process E6, the plots will kind of get crazy for a while. You don't want to run black and white through a C41 machine because, like ECN2, the emulsion can come off, it can do strange things, and then the chemicals aren't quite the same afterwards. So that's why we will do some cross-process, but raw ECN2 or black and white in color, we will not do. We don't do Kodachrome in the C41 because it's just not designed for it.